So let's begin. Okay, first of all, hi, I'm Game and Hoshi. Number one, I like Skullgirls Mobile. Number two, we're gonna start a tier list again because I feel like it. And this time, I'm gonna talk about the modifiers because no one talks about the modifiers too much, and I want to kind of rank them by how annoying they are to fight against, or if the debuffs are on you, or how useful some buffs are, and how you know how useful it is to inflict those debuffs. So there's going to be 4 separate lists, so, stay tuned, I guess, if you want to see all the lists. It's going to go over each debuff, buff, and debuff. And I'm going to give a quick explanation so we can get started immediately. Hopefully this list is targeted to new players, because when I started Skullgirls Mobile, I was a complete idiot. And I didn't even know what these buffs or debuffs do, which caused me to die a lot because sometimes I didn't know what Doom did, especially that one squiggly prize fight. So I kept dying, so I was confused. On flinching and evasion, I was like really confused what was happening there. So you should know what these debuffs do and what buffs and what debuffs you should inflict, what buffs you should look out for, and what buffs you should have. So let's start immediately. The first one I like to start out with, Armor Break. Armor Break is not that big of a deal. Oh yeah, before we start, I have 5 lists. Not a big deal, which is, not that big of a deal. Yellow, which can cause a few issues, but it's very small, minuscule. Midline of annoyance is just like middle of the road. It can be annoying, not annoying, around there. It kind of like, I would say it's split opinion. Really annoying is, really annoying. I don't have to explain that. AAN stands for Absolute Atrocious Nuisance, which is the worst debuff or buff to face against. So let's begin. I'll explain it for a bit and then explain what these debuffs do, and then I'll tell you if you get inflicted by this debuff, I'll tell you how annoying it is to deal with. But the first one, the armor break, it's not that big of a deal. If you have armor break on you, it's not you don't have to worry about it at all. So what armor break is, you take more damage and all your block shield is gone. So that might sound scary at first, but it's not that big of a deal because you're trying to win, and if the time runs out, you automatically lose. So you're not trying to play defensive here, you're trying to go more offensive. So you're gonna take damage a lot, especially if you get into the higher prize fights, or if you fight against very hard rifts. Every computer opponent will probably one shot combo you, or OKO you, or maybe deal 90% damage. So it's not that big of a deal when you get armor break. I mean, I guess it screws over heavy metal, but it's not that big of a deal. And also, why you're using heavy metal for offense. Anyways, bleed. Bleeding is not a big deal. It's just bleeding is just your health slowly depletes, but it will never deplete past 1%. Also, it's a very slow bleed. The bleeds can stack, but honestly, the only time I see bleeding being an issue is because you're doing prize fights, or if you're doing other stuff. Also, if you have a Valentine with you, or if you're a character who can get health back off of a blockbuster, it's not that big of a deal. Bleeding is just, if you get inflicted with bleeding, it's just not that annoying, honestly. Your health is slowly depleting, but it's not gonna kill you. And the only characters I can think about is Frayed Ends and other pain wheel, the copper pain wheel that inflicts bleed on you, but it's just not that big of a deal. Also, I'm going off of how annoying bleeds are, or how annoying these debuffs are, and I'm not gonna do it too much character dependent, like how Assassin's Greed, if you start bleeding, she starts healing, which makes bleed more annoying. But I'm not going off of that. I'm going off of how annoying it is when you have a debuff if you're fighting against a normal computer, not Assassin's Greed. Assassin's Creed's a different kind of annoying. So So next one is I think weakened. I don't know what this called. I forgot what it's called, but what this one can cause a bit of issues, especially if you have a strong enrage offense fighter, and if you're inflicted with that, you can be somewhat annoyed. So what this does is just like your attack goes down, and if you have any enrage, which is this orange sword buff, it's all gone, and you're gonna be put in a weakened status. For me, it's not that bad. I know it can cause some people a bit of issues, but other than that, for me, it's not that bad. Especially when I main the Jin Frizz, and I have permanent enrages, so it's not that bad, honestly. I know a lot of people can be, a lot of maybe high players are annoyed that all their enrages can disappear, especially if you play like someone else. But like, honestly, I don't. Sometimes it can be annoying, but it's not that bad. Next one's Curse, and this one can be in the middle line of annoyance. And it's because, it's like armor break and weaken, but like combined with other stuff. Basically, what Curse does is that you cannot get any buffs for like that many seconds. So 30 seconds of like you can't get buffs, so it's really annoying. And when you're trying to get final stand at times, or like if you're trying to get immunity, or let's see, miasma, enrage, precision, it can be really annoying. But sometimes for me, it's just not that bad. Like I see it, and sometimes I just switch it out. But like if you're using a character that doesn't rely too much on buffs, you should be fine. But if you do rely on a character with like a lot of buffs, then yeah, it can be a bit of a struggle. So next one's Death Mark. Death Mark, again, not a big deal. What it does is I think you're more susceptible to critical hits, and honestly, that's not that bad either. It's just like armor break. You're gonna take tons of damage, but like again, if you move up in the higher prize fights and higher rift battles, you're gonna take tons of damage anyway, so it's just not that big of a deal. Doom? Okay, I know a lot of people. Okay, so Doom is not that big of a deal, and I'll explain why. Because what Doom does is basically, if a Doom timer will appear on top of your character, and if it runs out, that character immediately dies. Go from any health, 100% to 0. So that sounds really annoying to deal with. But like, it's not really, because you have you can switch out your character. Actually, I'll put Doom in can cause issues, but because sometimes there can be like the purple prize fight. I forgot what it's called. There's that one accursed experiment, Squiggly's daily event. But other than that, Doom is not very. You're not gonna see Doom a lot. And if you get inflicted by Doom, you can always switch out your character no matter what. And I know why. Skullgirls doesn't want to use Doom too much, because having the ability to kill anyone, no matter what their health is pretty overpowered. So, and again, if you want to put Doom higher, sure, but Doom is not that big of a deal to me, because you can always switch out your character, and any debuff will be removed once you switch out your character. So, next one is disable swap-ins, I think, and this one can be somewhat annoying. It's like in the middle line, I would say, because there's some characters you want to switch out that you need to have, but if that's there, actually I'll put in can cause issues, because I don't think I see this one a lot. It's there at times, but like I don't see it a lot. Like if you want to go, so this one disables your ability to like switch in between characters, and honestly, it's not that big of a deal. But sometimes it can be, like if you're trying to use like a double issues to fight a Resident Evil, then it could be a bit of a problem. But other than that, you don't see it too much. The disable tag-in is not. I don't see it too much, and yeah, it can be somewhat annoying, but like, not really. Fatigue. I think fatigue would belong in the middle line of annoyance. I think it's perfect there, just because it's fatigue. It's in the middle line. Either you're gonna get stunned, or it doesn't happen. So basically, fatigue is like a doom timer, except if it runs out, you're gonna get stunned. 50% chance though. Sometimes you won't get stunned. And yeah, it's in the middle line of annoyance. It's not that bad, I would say, but like it can be somewhat bad. So let's move along. Armor break can cause some issues, but it's not that annoying, honestly. You're gonna be in the offense a lot, so and you have the ability to intercept opponents who try to dash after you. Unless you're fighting a big man, then it can be annoying. But other than that, armor break is a armor break, block break, or whatever it's called. I probably forgot its name. So this one is like when you're blocking, it has a chance. Every stack of the debuff you get is a 10% chance your block will break. So while you're blocking, the opponent will stop blocking. You will stop blocking, or the opponent will stop blocking. You can get free hits on them. So every 5 stacks is 50% chance every time they hit you, which is basically 100%. But yeah, it's if you know how to intercept, it isn't that bad actually. Wither is really annoying, and I'm gonna say the same thing for these two. Disable blockbusters and slow, because disabling any blockbuster is really stupid. Because blockbusters are bread and butter. It's supposed to be your big hit moves, and if that's disabled, that's just really annoying, because most of the time you'll see a lot of people use blockbusters to deal damage, and if they don't have that tool, that can be really, really annoying. And especially in rifts, where you see these a lot more, where people just disable your blockbusters and make you deal less damage and waste your time more, it can be really, really annoying. So, and sometimes you have to switch into your Harley Quinn and everything like that. So yeah. Next one is heal block. Heal block can cause some issues, but isn't that bad, honestly. Just ignore it. I ignore it most of the time because I don't really have a healing. I guess if you want to put some health back at times, if you really need it, because you took too much damage, but it's not that big of a deal, honestly. Heavy bleed goes in the same tier as bleed, because it's just the same thing. Heavy bleed just means you take 2-3% extra more, so it's heavier bleeding, so it's not bad. So it's the same thing, I would say. Hex is AAN. I really hate going against Hex. So Hex is basically your character cannot use their special ability, the abilities they have. So if I'm playing Cold Stones, I can no longer stun, or if I'm playing who else? If I play Bloodbath, I can't regen health every time I use a blockbuster. And if I'm playing Plot Twister, I cannot revive back. So it stops their abilities, which makes it super annoying, because you're trying to use those abilities. That's the reason why you're playing that character, probably to counter against another character or something. And if you're inflicted with Hex, it becomes really, really annoying. And because your whole game plan is basically shut down in a sense, so it's really obnoxious to deal with. I really do not like having Hex on me. Immobilize can be in the middle line of annoyance. Sometimes immobilize means you can't move, and sometimes I'm a guy who likes to approach a lot. So if I get mobilized, sometimes I just have to sit there. The opponent does something, sends a Peacock George after me or something like that, or spams projectiles. Can be annoying, but again, you have the ability to intercept and block, so it's not that big of a deal. So, inverse polarity can cause some issues. I think I've died once to it because I forgot I had it on me. So it's basically your health is instead of you healing, you start losing HP. So if you have like tons of healing on you, like 5 stacks of healing, like I think you heal like 5% per second, if around there, you're gonna lose 5 health per second. And if you have, but I don't see inverse polarity too much, so that's the reason why I don't put it as high as it is. But like it can be pretty annoying, but like usually when I see, I kind of switch out, especially when I'm playing my Leech Villias. So there's that. What was this one called? I can't seem to remember it. It was power break. I forgot, but like this one is in the middle line of annoyance because you're gonna use blockbusters a lot, and you can lose some HP, especially when you're fighting those Robo Fortunes, especially if you're fighting Lovecrafted too. So it's in the middle line. So every time you take, so basically this debuff, every time you use a blockbuster, you lose HP. It can stack too, so it's not that fun to deal with at times, but you know. Actually, it can cause some issues. I don't think it's that bad now that I think about it. Stun, you're gonna understand stun very quickly. You don't have to really you don't really have to, you know, you don't have to figure out what it is because it's pretty obvious. Your character can't do anything. Your character's helpless. They're stuck in that stunned animation. You've seen it before. It's not fun to be stunned. You can't do anything. The opponent gets a free hit on you. It's just not fun. It's super annoying. Slime is not that big of a deal, in my opinion. Like, maybe I died to slime like once, but other than that, so slime is kind of like the power break thingamajig, except every time you get buff, you lose health, and it can stack, but like, I don't see it too much. I think only Umbrella Fighters have it, and it's just, you don't see it as much, and you're not going to get annoyed by it as much, so it can go there and there, honestly. And then finally is the special, disabling specials. It's not that big of a deal compared to blockbusters, but if you're trying to run in with like a tag-in special or like a burst special, yeah, it can be really annoying. But I don't see that much people put on special, you know, disable specials, so it can go down there. Or like, it can be in the middle line. It can work against you, it can work for you. Actually, no, it doesn't work for you. Forget I said that, but like, work for you, I guess, when you're fighting the opponent, but we'll go over that later. But like, special except disable specials can go there for now. And that's it for the first part. And then for the second part, I'll be back with buffs, or how annoying if the opponent has those buffs. So I'm back. Okay, so here we have the buffs, and this list is going to be much more different compared to the debuffs, because when you get inflicted by debuffs, most of the time it's not that big of a deal. But when the opponent gets these buffs, sometimes they're a big deal. Like, they can change the battle or make you really annoyed, at the point that you have to equip like something to get rid of those buffs. And this is what makes some characters annoying. So let's go over. Armor. Armor can be really annoying. Armor, when the opponent has armor, you can't deal as much damage. I think they take less damage. 20% less, I think. That's really big. 20% less damage from your attacks is really big. And if they get 5 stacks of that, that's 100%. You can't deal as much damage to them. Which is crazy, because if they have 5 stacks sometimes, or even more than like 4 or 3, sometimes you deal 0 damage. Which can be really, really annoying. Especially when in Rifts, there's like frost armor and high water and all that stuff. It's really, really annoying to deal with. So, everyone knows how annoying armor is. And we're all trying, and that's why everyone equips like armor break and bleeds, just to deal with the character, especially if they are focused on armor. The blue fighters especially. Final stand is like, they cannot die until they reach 0. They can't die until this buff goes away, I mean. And final stand is in the middle line of annoyance. Like, you have to kind of wait it out in order to like fight, in order to like, you know, kill the opponent, unless you find a way to get rid of it. It's some waiting, I guess. And opponent Rifts will do that, and Trauma Center Valentines will put that on so that you don't kill them. You don't kill the character as fast, which can be somewhat annoying. But that's why Eliza Chaos Banish exists. So next one. Man, sometimes it's really hard to tell. Invincibility, I think, is really obnoxious. I cannot stand this whenever I see it. Basically, they take no damage. That's it. They're basically, you can't deal any damage to them. They take knockback, but they cannot deal any damage. And your whole goal is basically getting your opponents at 0%. So if your whole goal is trying to get the opponent at 0%, and if this is stopping you from doing so, then yeah, it becomes a really obvious nuisance right there. Healing is in the middle line because healing can stack, and when it stacks, it can get really annoying, and you really don't like seeing opponents getting their health back, especially, you know, when you dealt the damage to them. So it's in the middle line of annoying because bleed can counter it, heal block, inflicting heal block can counter it, inflicting inverse polarity can counter it. Like, a lot of things can actually counter heal. So there can be like block characters, and then there's characters or armor characters, and then there can be characters with heal. And you can find a character or find a move that can deal with heal sometimes, so it can be in the middle line of annoyance. Immunity is pretty annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Your whole goal is to kill the enemy, and especially if you want to kill them fast, you can inflict a lot of debuffs at the enemy. And sometimes when you're playing a stun character, a bleed character, or double, and if the opponent has immunity, especially if you're fighting like a dream band or something like that, it can become really annoying when you can't deal any debuffs to them when you're trying to make sure they die as quickly as possible before time runs out. And immunity is, you know, basically they can't get any debuffs. You or the opponent can't get any debuffs, and if the opponent can't get any debuffs, then good luck trying to kill them. So, auto block. I hate auto block so much. Worst buff to fight against, in my opinion. It's not as annoying or guaranteed as invincibility, but it's not fun. Like, this stupid buff, every time I try to launch an opponent as quickly as possible, when I see them have auto block, I try to launch them as quickly as possible. I swear to God, one time, I was playing like what, a Beowulf against like, I forgot what, like a low-leveled Annie, low-leveled model leader, because I know that was stupid of me to fight Beowulf with model leader, but like, she had only one stack, and I tried to launch her quickly after like the first hit, and then the auto block activated. I swear to God, every time I fight against auto block, it works against me every single time. Like, every time I try to launch, especially every time I launch, it activates. I swear to God, like 50% of the time, even if it's stacked by like 1 or 2, the opponent's gonna auto block my launch. It happens to me like 50% of the time. I swear to God, man, I can't stand auto block. So basically, auto block, opponent has a chance of you or the opponent has a chance of just blocking a hit, and it doesn't sound that bad, but it does sound it's really bad when it gets to like 5 stacks. I'm talking to you, model leader. So yeah, it's really annoying at times, which results in you trying to grab more or do like other stuff. And basically you just need a cursed character just to deal with it, but like if you don't have it, you're kind of screwed. So, you know, I hate auto block so much. So let's move on. Heavy regen. It can cause some issues. It can't stack like normal regen, Just because it can't stack like normal regen, it's just it's in the second tier, lower tier. Because healing can stack, which means you could heal like way faster. But then heavy regen is just like if you have like 2 or 3 stacks of heals, I would say around there. So yeah, heavy regen can just go down there. Haste is not that big of a deal. Actually, it can cause a few issues. Actually, now that I think about it, haste basically means your blockbusters go up faster, and it can be kind of scary when the opponent has a BB3 because you don't know. Every time they hit you, you don't know when they will activate it because BB3s can be a death sentence if it's activated on you. It can be a pretty big deal, but other than that, it's not too much to worry about because the opponent will get their BB3s anyways eventually during a match. So it's just them getting faster, so Blessing is really annoying. So basically Blessing, every time you or your opponent's HP reaches to 0, the Blessing goes away and you revive with like 15 HP or something like that, and it can stack so you can go up to like 50%, like half your health. I don't like Blessing. Blessing is just basically they get a free revival. They get to revive, especially if the opponent like has like a character like Persona Assist, and then they have every time you kill them they revive. You always have to launch your opponent too, or get them stuck in a blockbuster in the air or something like that, so you can keep the combo going. Because if you hit them on the ground while they have Blessing, then they get into that animation where they're just like slowly like collapsing to the ground, and you still trying to kill them, but they're in that like invulnerable state. So next one's Evasion. I hate Evasion. Everyone should know what Evasion does. Hopefully it means they get to dodge a hit, and especially if you're fighting That's All Folks or like Just Kitten, or if there's that one Rift season where in the like second final node, like every 10 combo hits gives them like Evasion. Really annoying because if you frick up and if you do a launcher and if they get like Evasion and if they dodge it, then they can get like a free hit on you essentially. And sometimes your combos are just stopped immediately, or your big damage moves can be stopped immediately just because of this stupid move. Maybe it isn't in the nuisance category, but it's very close to it. I'll just put it really annoying. I think it's better that way. Next is Unflinching. Unflinching is in the midline of annoyance. It basically means the opponent has armor until this buff goes away, and it's really annoying sometimes. You don't want the opponent to have armor, which which turns into you using tons of blockbusters and you trying to grab the opponent instead of like straight up attacking the opponent. So it's not fun, but like if you have blockbusters ready, if you didn't use your grab yet, you should be fine, honestly. But yeah, it can be pretty annoying at times. Thorns is a nuisance move. It's a nuisance buff. There's a lot of characters who like using Thorns, and it's super annoying because sometimes you have to move out of the way, or sometimes you have to just like if you're fighting like I forgot her name, the Cold Bite or something like that, the Pain Wheel. If you're fighting that, you have to move out of the way, or if you're like dealing too much damage against like Criminal Mind, then you have to wait it out. Thorns is not fun to deal with because especially when you're fighting harder rifts and harder prize fights, you're dealing more damage when you're hitting the opponent than you dealing the damage to them. And that's just really not that fun. So basically Thorns is a buff where either you're the opponent gets it, and then if you hit the opponent, you also take damage. And it can stack up to 5, and it can be really, really consequential when it stacks up to that much. Enrage! The first one that's not a big deal. Opponents will usually deal tons of damage to you. Enrage basically means attack up. That's it. It's just very simple. Very, very not very not big of a deal because opponents can get enraged. You can just deal with it easily. Your opponents will deal tons of damage regardless, so not that big of a deal. Deadeye is also not that big of a deal because the opponent's not going to abuse Deadeye all that much. And Deadeye is pretty good as a buff. Basically, you get to hit the opponent even when they have like stuff like auto block, unflinching, and evasion. But like Deadeye's a really good buff that got introduced lately, but like when the opponent has it, it's not that big of a deal, honestly. They don't have to utilize it. So precision, again, not that big of a deal. Yeah, the opponent can do massive damage to you, but at the same time, again, they're not you're basically going on the offense and not trying to get hit yourself, because regardless, you're going to take tons of damage in the later prize fights and rift battles, so it doesn't even matter. Barrier is really annoying because it's just another way. Actually, it's in the middle of annoyance. It's another way of healing, except they get like a shield. Basically, it's like extra health upon their health. So barrier is not fun. Basically, they get a shield. You have to break through the shield just to deal HP with them. And yeah, it's just not fun when the opponent has it. Miasma is really annoying, actually. Miasma can cause a lot of annoying fights to happen, especially if you're fighting like Vaporwave Vixen. Miasma slowly drains your HP, but at the same time slowly drains your blockbuster meter too. So it does two things at once. It can stack too, and it's just straight up annoying to deal with, especially when you have to fight up close to your opponent. Most of the time, that's every character anyways, so yeah, that does it for the buffs. As you can see, buffs are way more annoying to deal with when the opponent has it than debuffs, when you're getting inflicted by debuffs. But now, besides all this negativity, we're gonna go into more positive stuff and go over which debuffs are most helpful and which buffs are most helpful when you're in a prize fight, rift, daily event, whatever. Let's do this. Debuff time. So I'm gonna go over the tiers again. This time it's different. The one in the bottom is useless. Most of the time you don't really want to inflict this debuff or gain this buff. Most of the time it's just not there. It's supposed to be used for the opponent and not for you, for defense only. Barely worth it is in the yellow one. It's barely worth getting this buff or debuff. Sometimes it can be helpful, but it's not that big of a deal. The midline of helpfulness is the one where it's like in the middle, of course, like where it can be helpful, where it cannot be. It can be like it's in the middle line. And then the second one's nice to inflict or nice to have, based on like if it's good to have that buff or good to inflict that debuff. And finally, BFV mean brace for victory, which means these are the buffs and debuffs that help you win fights like immensely just because these exist. So with that said, let's start. Heavy bleed. It's very nice to inflict. Heavy bleed is super good, and especially against opponents, because you're trying to take your opponents down, and sometimes they just every hit you do now at like later prize fights, I would say, is especially if you're going up to like 50 almost, you're gonna deal like 1%, 2% per hit. So if you have an opponent, if you have a character that inflicts heavy bleed every time they use a blockbuster or move, or like it's part of their like ability, then that's really nice to have. It really breaks down their HP faster. And the reason why heavy bleed is not in BFV is because there's another debuff that does the similar thing, but can be way better at times. Next one's immobilize. Immobilize is most of the time useless. You don't really want to inflict immobilize to your enemy. Like maybe Squiggly, she can go back and charge her tail thingamajig. But like, why would you do immobilize? Especially when the opponent can also try to fight back, especially if you try to approach them when they try to intercept you. So I guess you could go to the corner and spam like peacock like projectiles, but other than that, immobilize not gonna make you win fights. It actually might even make you lose it because you're trying to run away. You're just like running away far away because the opponent can't touch you, but at the same time you're losing time, and you know if time runs out, you automatically lose. The offensive or the player automatically lose. So immobilize most of the time not worth it. Wither, inflicting wither is in the midline of helpfulness because if the opponent doesn't have any blockbusters, you can always spam your unblockable move, and at the same time you can always approach the opponent, block, make the opponent use their like G5 attack, or like make the opponent just do something, you know, unsafe, and then you start going on the attack, making them lose any blockbuster is really, really nice. And that goes the same with slow. Slow's in the midline of helpfulness. They can get buffs still, but you know, I mean, they can still get their blockbuster still. Actually, I would say slow's barely worth it because at the time you're fighting them, they're gonna get their blockbusters quickly. So if you inflict slow a bit too late, then it doesn't really matter. Stun is brace for victory because stun is good in every sense, because you always want your opponent to be like stunned, be able to not let them do anything, make you able to get, you know, free hits. So stun really good to inflict all the time. If the opponent was stunned forever, then you would like win every time. So also stun goes through all the blocks, so that's good too. Doom is nice to inflict to have. The reason why I say this is that it sounds good, especially when some characters have it, like Xenomorph and Windswept. Oh, not Windswept. What was her name? I even have this character. Or this variant. It's the Morgan Misfortune, the diamond green one. I forgot the name, but like it's good to have Doom inflict on your opponent so you can kill them quickly, but like at the same time you kind of have to stand in the corner and like press block, and most of the time you want to have immobilize at that time, but I don't think there's any character that has immobilize and Doom at the same time, so that's probably not gonna happen. And at the same time, most of the time Doom will take like 30 seconds or 20 seconds. It's a long timer, and you have like 3 minutes to complete a match. And most of the time I'm not a very patient player, so this is just my opinion. It's nice to inflict to have because, you know, you can instantly kill an opponent, but you know, your whole plan is screwed though once the opponent tags out. So it's a bit of a risk. You're wasting 30 minutes just to wait till your opponent dies most of the time. Around 30 minutes, 20 minutes, you're spending 1/6 of your time doing that. So, I mean, it's not bad, but still. Reverse polarity is BFV. Reverse polarity can actually save games. Especially if you're fighting against Assassin's Greed or any annoying regen opponent. This thing really, really helps you out. Is able to like deplete health just because the opponent has like a lot of heals on them. So really, really good to have. Really, really solid. Next one, the Power Surge. Now I remember the name. Thank God. Power Surge is most of the time useless because you're trying to make sure your opponent doesn't use a blockbuster or the computer's not use a blockbuster. So and what you're gonna deal 10 damage for them to like instantly kill you when they use a BB3. Like sometimes they use blockbusters, you know, here and there at times, but it's like not gonna happen. So I think it's most of the time Power Surge is useless inflicting on them. Heal Block. Heal Block is in the middle line of helpfulness. It's not as good as Inverse Polarity, but it's good to make sure the opponent stops healing so you can keep fighting them. But just because this is on a limited timer, they're gonna start healing again. Unless your character's all about heal blocks, then you're not gonna it's just there for a second and it can disappear. Bleed is actually better than heavy bleeding. I'm gonna say that because it can stack. Because it can stack up to 5 and it just depletes health off of that. It's just really good. That's why I really enjoy using what was her name? Man, I can't believe Bad Hair Day Philia. Yeah, even though she's still a character that can fall off soon, she's still really handy to have. And bleeds, when you stack those bleeds, oh my god, it's perfect. It's perfect. You can win tons of games off of that. Curse is nice to inflict because you sometimes, especially like recently, I've been using Unholy Host a lot. I know a lot of people hate that character or that variant, but oh my god, the curse is so good. So like characters like Model Leader or like Valentines with Ices don't ever get a chance to get their buffs. So curse is really, really nice to have. This one is barely worth it at times. The block breaking thing, it's just not that worth all the time. Like, sure, you can get an extra hit off, but like, I don't know, the opponent's stupid enough to, you do stupid moves where you can hit them already, so it's just kind of not worth it. It's somewhat helpful, but it's just not worth. Death Mark is nice to inflict because you're dealing more damage to them. Since they're getting more crit, since they're getting the opponent taking more crit damage, it's really nice to have. At the same time, the cripple, now I remember, it's called cripple. Cripple is barely worth it. Like, maybe, yeah, the opponent's taking less damage, but still, come on, man. Like, it's not gonna do much. Cripple's not gonna do all that much to deal less damage. Your opponent's still gonna do a lot of damage. I'm just gonna say that. It doesn't even matter if you inflict cripple on them. That's block break. I keep forgetting. Armor break. Armor break is nice to have. I wouldn't say it instantly makes you win games, but it's super nice to make sure you destroy all their armor and they take more damage. It's in the same category as Death Mark. Really nice to have. Really nice to destroy all their opponent's armor. The disabled tag-ins is barely worth it at times. Like, maybe you don't want your opponent to go away, because in rifts and prize fights, if you start not attacking your opponent, the opponent will decide just to tag out, especially when the character has low health and lots of red health. And you don't want their red health to be recovered, so it's barely worth it at times to use the disabled tag-ins to inflict it. But because if you keep going in front of the character's face or the opponent's face, then yeah, they're never gonna switch out most of the time. And also if they do switch out, you can see it coming and you can get easy hidden. And I do have some offensive characters. I do equip like what were they called? Snapbacks, the snapback moves. So it's cool. So it's not that bad. It's not that good to use this to inflict this debuff, yeah, on the opponent. Hex, on the other hand, is really, really good when you're using it on the opponent, because it makes sure that make sure they don't use their ability. The whole reason why characters are being used on some defensive teams is just because of their abilities. Like, Model Leader has the auto block thingamajig. Let's see here. What was her name? Death Wish has the ability to revive everyone. Same thing with Killjoy. And then characters like Plot Twister has a second chance to revive and all that nonsense. And so, Hex just completely throws all the opponent's abilities out the window. And it gives you the chance to quickly do enough damage or do enough things to get going just to take them down. I wouldn't say it's an automatic win because you need to make sure Hex is I would put in the lowest of the BFV, but it's so useful to inflict that I don't want to put it any lower. So make sure you inflict those hexes. Disable blockbusters. It's nice to inflict. It's better than Wither and Slow because it just stops it completely. Actually, it's in the midline of helpfulness because they can, if it runs out, they can start using it again. But like, yeah, just stop them from using blockbusters so they can still keep doing moves that are unsafe. So this one's more barely worth it. Maybe because the opponent has lots of has a lot of bursts or something like that. But other than that, it's just not worth it most of the time. Disabling specials is nice, I guess. But like, what character would, besides Cerebella and Beowulf, there's some characters just doesn't have as good as a special move as those two, or their moves are not as annoying. So disabling specials can go into barely worth it. Fatigue is barely worth it because, like I said, I think fatigue works only on like Fukuas, and like, yeah, fatigue isn't worth most of the time. Sure, you can get a stun off, but most of the time it's not gonna happen. And like I said, stun is guaranteed, while fatigue is like a 50% chance. So it's kind of a, and at the same time, stun is immediate. When they get stunned, they get stunned. So that means they can't move. Fatigue, they have a 10-20 second chance before it runs out. So it's not worth it as much. You can stop your combo midway and start a new one, but it's just not worth it. Let's see, final one, Slime. Slime is BFE. I think they did a good job with Slime. They nerfed it, but I still think it's really, really good. Especially when I'm playing Death Wish and the opponent likes to abuse buffs. When Death Wish is really good on offense too, because I can hex them. And then, but again, the problem with Slime is that only Umbrella characters use Slime the most. But at the same time, Slime is very useful, especially to those who just use buff way too much. Actually, I wouldn't say it's the immediate win, but like, I'm not sure if, yeah, I'll put it down a tier because I don't see myself winning too much because of Slime. But it'll be in the higher tier. But they did nerf Slime recently, so it's not as good as it was before. But the fact that I can stack is pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. But I wouldn't say it's not gonna give you a guaranteed victory from it. So yeah, that's the buff, debuffs, and now it's the buffs, how helpful the buffs are, and it's gonna look way different from the debuffs. Alright, we're back with the buffs. So the first one we're gonna start off with is, we're gonna get right into it, Precision. Precision's BFE. Precision's really good. Anytime you have your attack up, it's always really good. So BFE increase is Precision is basically guaranteed critical hits. And critical hits is really good, just to deal like massive amounts of damage. That's why people sometimes overrate the Star Shine. What was her name? The Yellow Diamond Annie. Yes. I'm very bad at remembering the variants names at times. She's the Precision. Sorry, Precision is really good, and that's all I have to say. It's just not good to have. It's good to deal damage with, and yeah. So Evasion is midline of helpfulness, I would say. It's just not that worth. Like, sure, you can have Evasion, but you can have a very fast way to approach your opponent, especially when your opponent's gonna like try to intercept you. So you can get free hidden. Evasion just helps you get free hidden. That's all I could say about Evasion. The buffs are gonna be pretty short because they're straight to the point. Deadeye is nice to inflict, especially when you're fighting against. Nice to have, I mean. Especially when you're fighting against opponents who abuses the heck out of like unflinching and armor and all that other nonsense. But the problem is it's mostly on who was it? Dahlias. So it's a bit of a problem there, but like it's fine. Haste is BFV. I wish I had more haste. Haste is, I don't see a lot of characters like having haste.
But like when you do get haste, man, you could like spam BB3s a lot. You can spam like all the strong blockbusters all you want. It's a shame you don't get that much haste, but when you do, it's nice. It's nice to get that. It's like to be, it's nice to have to get that strong and be able to get blockbusters quickly. Heavy regen, barely worth. Both regen and heavy regen can go barely worth. Like I said, you're trying to deal damage. You're not trying to heal a lot of HP, especially in this game, in Skullgirls Mobile. You're trying to take down your opponent as fast as you can, not heal up and try to, like, it's a good safety net, but it's not worth it all the time. And the same thing can go with Final Stand. Actually, Final Stand's the midline of helpfulness because it stopped, especially when you have like Trauma Center Valentine, or if you want to try to get rid of the opponent's BB3, you can have Final Stand and be able to survive it. But other than that, it's very close to being in the second tier of barely worth it. Because again, you're trying to kill your opponent as fast as you can, not make sure you're... Then again, you do have to make sure you survive. You can't let all 3 of your characters die, or else, you lose. So, again, regen's pretty good, but like, again, try to kill your opponent as fast as you can, because the time can screw you over more than your character's losing at times too. So, unflinching, it's nice to have because you can just approach your opponent without having to worry too much. Really, really good. The opponent's going to try to hit you unless they have a BB3 or a blockbuster they're going to use. Sometimes you can't anticipate the blockbuster if the opponent's going to use it, or the computer's going to use it. But other than that, unflinching, pretty good. Nice to have. Barrier, most of the time is useless. Again, if you fight the opponent, your barrier's not going to do anything, especially when you go up against like strong characters in prize fights and very strong characters in risk. It's not going to be worth your time. That barrier's going to last wouldn't last as long. It's probably going to be shredded when the opponent tries to hit you even while you're blocking. So barrier, not worth it. Not worth your time grabbing. So blessing, it's in the midline of helpfulness. You can survive a BB3 off of it. If the opponent has you in the air, you're kind of screwed though. But other than that, it's just a safety net, another safety net survivability. Same thing with Final Stand. It's a safety net if you want your character to survive. But like, again, if you have like other characters with the revival capabilities, it's not. I guess having 3 revives would be cool and all, but still. Enrage is what makes you win games. Honestly, this game, 20% extra attack is really good. So, it's very straightforward. Get more attack so you can deal more damage, so you can win the fight against the computers. Very, very easy. That's why I played the Gen Frizz and I try to get 5 stacks of enrages just to kill the opponent. Enrages help you deal with characters like splitting images who constantly regen, and you just want to deal tons of damage. So, enrage, very important. Miasma is nice to have. It's basically you're kind of like bleeding them, but at the same time make sure they don't have blockbusters. And if you can stack it, that would be super nice too, because if you can somehow stack 5, keyword somehow, then you can be able to, slowly drain their health faster and get rid of their blockbusters. Really, really nice to have. Armor is most of the time useless. Again, if you get into the higher prize fights and rift battles, I'm going to say that a lot. Actually, we're about done, so it's not worth it. Again, so you're going to deal tons of damage to you regardless, so it's not worth to have armor. Armor is just there to cuck you, but not here to help you, basically. Barrier and armor. Invincibility. It's nice to have, especially when you see it. You should probably get rid of the opponent's BB3 when they have it. Very nice to have, because you take no damage, so that's really, really nice. If you... Again, you won't see invulnerability or invincibility a lot, so... when you have it, it's a neat treat. Especially when you're playing double, it's a really nice treat to have. You're not gonna take any damage. It's the best safety net, I would say. Thorns is barely worth it because when the opponent has tons of health, it's not gonna make a dent. Even with 5 stacks of thorns, it's barely not gonna make a dent to the opponent. Like, when the opponent has thorns, you're gonna take tons of damage, but when you have thorns, you're not gonna take that much damage. Kind of infuriating, but you know, that's just what happens. Immunity is nice to have because you don't want to get debuffs yourself, because if you get debuffs like stun and all that nonsense, and especially if you're trying to deal with opponents, and if you don't want to get inflicted with all these like nasty debuffs, immunity is nice to have. It's not bad, but you know, it won't make you win games, obviously. And then finally, auto block is barely worth it. Like, sure, you can block things, but then again, you're trying to win, not trying to, you know, play defense. And if you do block, if you do activate auto block, there's a chance the opponent has a BB3 ready and they're going to just activate it. So again, it's not even worth it. And like I said, most of the auto block characters are blue fighters, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to just put in useless because, like, yeah, you can get a free hit off. That it's possible, but again, not much offensive characters have this, and at the same time, it's barely going to activate, and then a BB3 is also going to screw you over. So, yeah, and that's the video. I hope you learned stuff. I hope you had a good recap. I hope you had opinions, disagreements, agreements. Yeah, I would love to make more tier lists like this. So, if you want to see me more, or see me do more like top 10, top 16s, tier lists. I have montages here. I like doing everything here. I'm going to squeeze everything out of this game. So I love, probably the best app game I ever played. If you don't know what this video is on, play Skullgirls Mobile. Really good game. Enjoyable. Easy to waste time on. Easy to invest on. But yeah, I'll see you guys when I see you guys. Adios.